Seemingly just to mess with Merrick and Freege and Bobby Mack and that dude named Duthie. General managers across Canada are pulling the Berkey and getting bleep done before deadline day when everyone spends all of their money to prove how big. 24 hours, we've got more deals than your guy Wayne Brady. Sens, Jets, Habs, Canucks, all involved. We'll get you caught up to date completely. But let's start with the biggest one of them all, Sydney. I think that remains the Canucks.
Yeah, there's been a lot happening, but I still think last night was the most significant moment.
All right, here's the move the Vancouver Canucks made last night in case you weren't watching, you were doing other things, or you just have a life in which we all understand. They acquired Tyler Toffoli from the Kings for Tim Schaller, prospect Tyler Madden, and a pair of draft picks, one of them conditional on the surface. Looked like a trade to help the playoff push. But today, general manager Jim Benning revealed a deeper reason for the swap, and it had to do with some bad news in the Lower Mainland and Brock Boeser's injury status.
What's happened is with Brock, we said there's going to be an announcement in 3 weeks, but it's an 8-week injury. So, we wanted to make sure that, we had ourselves covered. I wanted to help the players in the locker room. I want to help the coaches. It's been a positive vibe around the group this year, and I want to compete here coming down the stretch for a playoff spot. So, you make the playoffs, you don't know what's going to happen in the playoffs. So that's the message I was trying to send by adding a player like Tyler to our group.
So we're never getting Jim Ralph on the show again? Never mind. Brock Boeser out at least 8 weeks.
Have we ever gotten Jim Ralph on the show?
We have
I think a couple times, right?
Yeah,
sorry, Jimmy. Apologize for that.
What are the Canucks fans to make of the last 24 hours in Vancouver?
I don't like what I heard. And I don't like what I... Listen, I have nothing against Tyler Toffoli. Nothing. The guy can play in this league. He got minutes when they won a cup. You don't do that by accident. All right? I think he'll be okay. But if you're not going to have Brock Boeser potentially until, like, for the rest of the season, that's a chill up everyone's spine here. And no one really, it was so innocuous in the moment. And to be sitting here thinking that Boeser's gone potentially for the season, look, I'm thinking one thing if I'm a Canuck fan right now. Jacob Markstrom better be that Vezina goalie for the rest of the year. He's going to have to be, because this team is not as good now. And you don't know what the young guys are going to do down the stretch in Quinn Hughes and Pettersson. For Quinn Hughes, this is a baptism by fire. He's been great so far. It's going to come down to goaltending, because that Boeser injury is not something anyone expected. I think it's debilitating. And it's down to Markstrom. Markstrom's going to have to be the guy. Now, he's playing for a contract. He may play that way anyway. You may get that type of Jacob Markstrom.
Right.
But Tyler Toffoli ain't saving your ass. He isn't. And Markstrom's going to have to be the guy. And if I'm a Canuck fan, I'm way nervous at how this went. Way nervous.
But hold on. That's if you knew that news, which we're presuming Jim Benning did, then
guaranteed.
Yeah, he did. Then it's a pretty good replacement for Brock Boeser. And listen, I would be way more worried about Brock Boeser never having played more than 69 games in a season than I would be over the rest of this year. For me, listen, I know what's going on in Vancouver. I know their fans are very tough on that team, and I know that ownership wants to make the playoffs, and what this is obviously a push to the playoffs. And if you want to go all the way back to Trevor Linden walking out that door, all of it is in line, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Make your run to the postseason. But for me, Ferland, Levo, and now Brock Boeser all being out puts them in a bad spot for the rest of this regular season. And you're right. But there are a bunch of things that would make me nervous. And I think that what this is about is, listen, if they sign Tyler Toffoli long-term, if they're able to retain him, I think this is a good move all around.
But that's not the initial feeling here, right? Like, but that conditional other pick is if they re-sign him. He probably won't be re-signed by the hockey team.
But think about what we had. Think of the conversation that we had with Kevin Bieksa yesterday about this team and adding championship experience to a young core. Like, that's what this season is about for the Vancouver Canucks. Is it not? Has it not been the entire time? Try to get to the postseason. Try to get some experience so that the next step is beyond whatever the hell happens here. And, hey, if you get into the postseason in that division anything can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think the fan base there deserves this. They deserve a postseason appearance. And if they get there, considering what the expectations are, let's not have revisionist history. There weren't a lot of people to start this year saying, I really like the cut of the Canucks jib.
Right.
Now, they're here now. So if they close this out and get in via wild card or whatever, successful year. Hands down.
Right.
Successful year. Some of those kids get some playoff experience, whether it's 4, 5, 6 games. It's irrelevant to me.
Right.
They get in there.
Or
they
12
see what
games
it's like.
because of that division.
Hopefully it could be longer. Listen, I'm a Canucks guy. I like this team a lot. The Boeser thing makes me nervous. The slide they're on makes me nervous. Jacob Markstrom's going to have to be the guy. If he starts to slide, then this whole I don't know what the Jim Benning feelings are like in the Lower Mainland. And I know he just signed an extension. But it's going to be an interesting conversation.
Hold on.
It's going to be an interesting conversation with Jim Benning.
I want to get to the rest of the trades, but you feel like you're doing what you did when Freddie Anderson got hurt.
What are you doing? I'm not doing anything.
And it was like the sky is falling. The sky did not fall when Freddie Anderson got hurt. It led to a trade and ended up being a pretty decent trade for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And then Freddie Anderson came back. We know Brock Boeser is done for 8 weeks, and we know that Brock Boeser has had injuries in the past.
Right.
And we know that in Vancouver, injuries have reared their ugly head over the past couple of seasons.
It's been awful.
And that to me is more troubling than the rest, because bleep can happen, as you well know, after an initial diagnosis.
It's true.
Right?
Now, in terms of the sky falling with the Leafs, I know what you're saying. They have one regulation win in their last 9 games, and it's against Ottawa. So it's not like things have been great with the Toronto Maple Leafs either. Right?
I love this when they lose, you turn it into the regulation win, and when they win, it's a win. But who cares? Like they're in a play.
They count different in the standings. Too. We know this.
No, they don't.
The math is completely different.
No.
Everyone knows this.
No, they don't. All right, let's get to the rest of the deals. The Canadiens have acquired St. Louis's second-round pick in the 2020 NHL Draft in exchange for Marco Scandella, who they just picked up.
Scandalous.
About a month ago.
What?
January 4th.
So they got him for a 4th.
Correct.
And they flip him for a 2nd and a conditional 4th.
Mm-hmm.
Marc Bergevin, genius. Genius.
Let's save the conversation for a second and give you the rest of the deals quickly. The Sens traded Dillon DeMello to the Jets, so Canadian on Canadian trade. Sens send Dillon DeMello to the Jets. They get a 2020 third-round pick in exchange. And speaking of defensemen moving, Brendan Dillon, who we all saw get pretty emotional last night with the idea that he was going to be moved, he goes to Washington. Solid pickup for them. Second-round pick, 2020 draft from Colorado, and a conditional third-round pick the following year. Also, rumors circulating right now about an Alec Martinez deal to Vegas. He won't be in the lineup for LA tonight against the Jets, and every game for the Jets important. They're now facing a Kings team without their top goal scorer and Alec Martinez. So those are the main deals that we have seen today. Would you like to get back to the Habs conversation? Do you want to do Jets and Sens? I got some rumors surrounding the Habs. Where do you want to go with this, Sixero?
The biggest deal is Brendan Dillon to the Caps, aside from Toffoli last night. Biggest deal today is Brendan Dillon, a guy who got emotional last night, a guy who's not unfamiliar with playoff hockey, going to the second-best team in the Eastern Conference. 1 point up on the Pittsburgh Penguins. Capitals have one goal in mind. It's great to see teams like that in this league doing stuff like that, adding to what they have. And now Jimmy Rutherford in Pittsburgh, he's not going to sit on his hands. He might pull off another move as well, knowing full well he's got to get through Washington to get out of that Eastern Conference. That is the biggest move of the day.
Did you just say that the Washington Capitals were the second-best team in the Eastern Conference?
Oh, check that. Third best team. The team that's won 11 straight in Tampa.
Yeah. I wanted to hold you for just a quick second.
I was incorrect on that
because the leader of that division obviously will get the 2 seed, but at 79 points, they're a little bit behind the winners of 11 in a row. And you and I both watched what happened last night in Colorado.
A hockey game on Sportsnet last night.
Right.
Listen, man, I watch a lot of Leafs hockey, obviously. I try to watch as much Canadian hockey as I can. I haven't seen that kind of intensity in a Leaf game in 2.5 years.
Right.
That was unbelievable last night. Anyway, I don't want to get too far down the road on that.
Okay,
Brendan
so let's
Dillon's a hell of a pickup for Washington. That's great.
And they got some tough players on that team. It's going to be really interesting to see how they play in the postseason and how that game was played last night that you were just talking about between the Avs and the Lightning, and whether the Lightning are going to play that way when they go to the postseason. Did they learn from last year that they've got to play that way? All that remarkably intriguing to me. But the Canadiens have flipped Marco Scandella. So what does this tell us about the Habs' plans, if anything? Like, if there's sellers, why is Shea Weber back in the lineup tonight as the Habs face the Wings?
I have no idea.
Was it just that they were able to turn what was a fourth-round pick into a second-round pick and maybe a conditional fourth?
Yeah, maybe they wanted
Like,
a do-over
just
on
that?
Scandella. Maybe it could
Maybe
be as simple as
Scandella
that.
didn't work?
It could be as simple as that. Big picture, here's my issue with the Montreal Canadiens. To have any debate on what they're doing is ridiculous because none of these clues add up. Like, Habs fans, let me ask you this. Do you think the Sabres are in the playoff hunt right now? Just ask yourself something. Do you think the Buffalo Sabres are in it? Because if you don't, why the hell do you think the Habs are in it? They're both 8 back.
Right.
They're both 8 points out. Someone explain to me how that works. The Montreal Canadiens are done. They've been done for weeks. They've lost 8 in a row twice this season. They have never had it, ever. And you're gonna not stop Shea Weber from coming back tonight in a nothing hockey game. Nothing.
Well, I don't know if they think it's nothing, and I know that you think it's nothing, but would you want your team quitting on the year? By the way, the Sabres have 2 games in hand.
2 games in hand, correct. And they'll screw those up. So they'll both be even eventually.
Okay.
But at some point, be realistic about what you are. Shea Weber has already missed chunks of games due to injury with that specific left foot in mind. He played through 25 games last year when he shouldn't have. This is madness. This is absolutely madness. Nothing publicly from the GM. The only guy talking is Claude Julien. They're 8 points out. The Sabres are 8 points out. Do you think the Sabres are in it? No? Then why the hell is Montreal in it?
Well, Montreal, hold on, is riding a high. Wait a second, they've lost 4 in a row.
Correct.
They do have Detroit, Washington, and then Ottawa all on the road.
Favorable. It's not unfavorable.
Washington's not a good matchup, but Detroit and Ottawa in the next 2. Maybe you get something going.
You and I both know.
They climbed to within 5.
Leapfrogging teams in this league is damn near impossible.
How about this? Jimmy Murphy, who covers the Bruins locally in Boston. I'm just going to read you the top of his story today.
Okay.
Boston Bruins' longtime interest in Montreal Canadiens winger Ilya Kovalchuk has been reignited, but could they also be interested in Kovalchuk's teammate, Thomas Tatar?
So
Now take it for what it is. This is just a headline, probably trying to get clicks. Who knows?
I don't want to take it for what it is. I want to act like it's close to being fact. How infuriating would that be for the Montreal fan base? How infuriating.
I don't know
would
how
that
infuriating it would be. I think that we heard from the Montreal fan base that they think they're done. When they started chanting the presumptive number 1 overall pick in Montreal at the Bell Center, I think they were telling you which way they wanted to go. And I don't know if it's the majority. I don't know how much of the majority it would be if it was the majority. But I got a feeling that there are a lot more Montreal Canadiens fans who have a grip on reality than the ones you're chastising in the last 5 minutes.
You want to pull it up then? You want to throw this out there to the people, to the Habs fans watching and listening?
Here's what will happen is other fans will vote and say they're done.
You're such a cynic when it comes to our polls, man.
We could try.
Our polls are huge.
We could try and say, just Montreal fans, are you guys done, yes or no?
Honor system. Honor system poll.
But you know what's going to happen. A bunch of Leaf fans are going to say they're done and vote.
But it'll be a minority.
And they'll ruin our huge poll.
And
the last thing I want is for our huge polls to be ruined.
But the percentage of error is like 5%. So let's assume 5%
is that our poll? Is that our polling errors?
That's our polling errors,
right,
yeah.
Okay.
I've had plenty of 5% polling errors in my life.
Sens trade Dillon DeMello. They get a 3rd-round pick in exchange from the Jets. The Sens now own 2 first-rounders, 3 second-rounders, and 2 third-rounders in the 2020 draft. So we know what they're doing in Ottawa. And DeMello's a pretty good pickup for the Jets.
There's not a lot of plus hockey players on the Sens this year, Tim. Dillon DeMello is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for team, listen, you look at the Leafs defensive situation, you look at the Jets defensive situation, hell, you look at a lot of defensive situations around the league, people using a body. I think it's a rather shrewd pickup by Kevin Cheveldayoff in that Jets front office, where it still gives them plenty of room to spare, again, whenever this Dustin Byfuglien thing becomes official, and they can spend some $7.8 million on the cap in a proper way. I think it's a fine pickup. I'm not saying it propels them to a postseason spot, Winnipeg, but it sure as hell doesn't hurt.
Remember I was telling you last week with Elliot Friedman that I thought that the injuries might be pushing the defense market along here? Lo and behold, we have a bunch of defensemen go today. And listen, I don't know why you keep bringing up the Toronto Maple Leafs in every one of these deals. I mean, the Leafs couldn't use Dillon DeMello. They couldn't use Brendan Dillon. They couldn't use Marco Scandella. They're good on D. Oh, what's that? Why do you want me to look at the D pairings for the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight? Someone's whispering in my ear. Let's have a look at the D pairings for the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight.
An oldie but a goodie has cropped up again.
Huh?
Yep. Your boy, Martin Marincin.
So it's Muzzin and Hull as your top pair.
Yep.
Sandin and Barry as your second pair. Dermott Marincin as your third. Okay, hold on a second. Maybe they could use at least Brendan Dillon.
In fairness to Timothy Liljegren, who's not playing tonight, Tim, he's not ready to be an NHLer, but he more than makes up for it by not being healthy.